Before we begin, remember you never truly know who's sitting beside you or what battles they've already fought. This story will remind you that kindness costs nothing, but arrogance can cost everything. So sit back, relax, and let this story open your heart. The morning sun was barely awake, spilling gold across the quiet streets of Brooksville. The small-town bus stop, with its rusted bench and cracked glass shelter, stood at the corner of Maple and 3rd, a place where time seemed to pause between destinations. 17 years, Ethan Walker, with headphones hanging loose around his neck and a designer jacket that probably cost more than most people's rent. His phone was glued to his hand, a mirror reflecting a boy who thought the world revolved around him. He wasn't supposed to be here. The family driver was off sick, and his dad's office car had a flat tire. So, for the first time in his life, Ethan Walker had to take the bus like everyone else. The thought alone made him roll his eyes. "Ugh," he muttered. "This is gonna ruin my morning." He scanned the area. A few people were waiting, a mother with her daughter, a construction worker sipping coffee, and an elderly man sitting quietly at the far end of the bench. The old man was dressed simply, faded jacket, worn cap, calloused hands clutching a paper bag on his lap. He looked like someone life had passed by but hadn't managed to break completely. His gaze was fixed somewhere far off, not at the street, not at the people, somewhere only he could see. Ethan snorted softly. "Figures," he whispered to himself. "Old folks always look lost." He plugged one earphone in and started scrolling through his messages. But then, as he leaned against the bench, he noticed the old man's shoes. Scuffed. Torn at the edges. One lace missing. Ethan couldn't resist. "Hey, old man," he said, loud enough for others to hear. "Did those shoes come free with the retirement plan?" The mother nearby gave him a disapproving look. The old man slowly turned his head, eyes calm but tired. He didn't say a word. Ethan smirked. "What? Cat got your tongue?" The old man's lips curved into the faintest smile. "No, son," he said quietly. "I just don't waste my breath on noise." That response drew a small chuckle from the construction worker. Ethan flushed red. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially by someone who looked like they belonged in a nursing home. "Noise?" Ethan scoffed. "You probably haven't had a real conversation since the 80s. The old man didn't answer. He looked down at his bag, pulling it closer to his chest as if it were something precious. His silence only made Ethan more irritated. He turned his phone camera on and whispered to his friend over FaceTime, "Bro, check this out. I'm waiting for the bus with Grandpa Dust here. Man looks like he fought dinosaurs." His friend laughed on the other end. "Do it for the group chat, dude." Ethan grinned. He started filming, angling the camera toward the old man without asking. "Yo, what's up, guys?" he said in a mock announcer voice. "Here we are, live from the prehistoric zone. Meet our special guest, the fossil himself." The old man just sat still, steady, like a rock in a storm. Then he spoke softly, without anger. "Young man," he said, eyes still on the horizon, "mockery says more about the one speaking than the one being spoken to." The laughter in Ethan's phone died down. He blinked, unsure how to respond. "Whatever, old-timer," he said finally. "Enjoy your bus ride to nowhere." The bus arrived with a hiss, brakes screeching against the pavement. Ethan stepped on first, flashing his digital pass with a dramatic swipe. The old man followed, slow but deliberate, nodding politely to the driver. Inside, the teen slouched in the back seat, scrolling again, pretending the world outside didn't exist. But he couldn't help glancing up. The old man had taken a seat near the front upright, hands folded over his bag, eyes staring out the window. Something about his posture, it wasn't weak. It was composed, centered, like someone who'd seen too much and carried it quietly. The bus rumbled forward. Ethan's reflection in the window blurred with the scenery, rows of houses, an old gas station, kids biking to school. Then his phone buzzed again. It was his dad. "Dad, morning, son. You get to school okay?" "Ethan, yeah. Bus life." Guess I'm officially broke. Dad, don't mock people for what they have, Ethan. Remember, not everyone gets the same start. Ethan, sure, whatever. He tossed his phone onto his lap, annoyed. Always with the lessons. Always trying to teach him values and humility. Words that meant nothing when your family had money and influence. When the bus stopped at Main Street, Ethan noticed the old man reach into his pocket and pull out a small, silver keychain. It had a symbol, a winged shield engraved on it. He traced it with his thumb for a moment before slipping it back into his coat. That detail stuck in Ethan's mind for some reason. It looked familiar, but he couldn't place it. The bus rolled on. After a few more stops, Ethan got off near his school. As he stepped down, he glanced at the old man one last time. Their eyes met briefly, the old man's calm, knowing, Ethan's sharp, restless. "Take care, son," the old man said quietly. Ethan gave a mocking salute and walked away. He didn't know that would be the last time he'd see that man until the night everything fell apart. The storm came without warning. Heavy rain pounded the streets, turning sidewalks into rivers. Ethan sat at the diner near the school, waiting for his dad to pick him up. His friends had already left, and his phone battery was dying. He sighed, staring out the foggy window. Then, through the glass, he saw flashing lights. Ambulance. Police. People gathering. Something had happened at the intersection up ahead. Curious, he grabbed his bag and ran outside. The rain drenched him instantly, but he didn't care. He pushed through the crowd, then froze. A black sedan had crashed into a lamppost. The driver, his father, was being pulled out, barely conscious. "Dad!" Ethan screamed. He tried to rush forward, but an officer stopped him. "Stay back, kid." Minutes felt like hours. Paramedics worked frantically. His father's face was pale, blood streaked down his forehead. The car was a wreck. Then, through the chaos, Ethan saw someone standing near the wreck holding a jacket over his father's body to shield him from the rain. The old man. The same one from the bus stop. He was soaked, trembling, his own arm bleeding from a cut. But he stood there silently, his expression calm, almost protective. "Sir," a paramedic said, "you need treatment too." "I'm fine," the old man replied. "Just make sure he's all right." When they finally lifted James Walker onto a stretcher, Ethan ran beside him, tears mixing with the rain. "Dad, Dad, stay with me." His father's eyes fluttered open. He whispered something, a name. "Sam Hayes." Ethan's heart stilled. He turned, looking at the old man again. "Wait, you know him?" But before he could ask more, the medics rushed his father away into the ambulance. And the old man was gone. That night, as Ethan sat outside the hospital, drenched and shaken, he replayed every moment from that morning. Every word he said, every laugh, every look of calm the old man gave him. He didn't understand who Mr. Hayes was, not yet. But he was about to learn a truth that would change everything he thought he knew about himself, his father, and the man he mocked. Hours crawled by. His phone was dead. The only sound was the distant beep of heart monitors and the soft patter of rain still clinging to the windows. Finally, a doctor approached, mid-40s, gentle face, clipboard in hand. "Ethan Walker?" He stood up instantly. "This is my dad?" "He's stable now," the doctor said. He had a mild concussion and a few broken ribs. Someone called emergency services just in time. Another minute or two and the doctor didn't finish. "You can see him in a few hours." Ethan let out a shaky breath. Relief, guilt, confusion all twisted together. Who found him?" The doctor checked his notes. "A Mr. Samuel Hayes. He pulled your father from the car before the fire reached the engine. Then he disappeared before we could thank him." Ethan's stomach dropped. Samuel Hayes, the name echoed in his head. That quiet old man. The one he mocked. The doctor continued, "Your father kept saying his name even before he passed out. Does he know him?" I don't know," Ethan stammered. I think he might." The doctor nodded, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Your father's lucky, son. Most people wouldn't have had the strength to act like that man did." Ethan said nothing. The weight of shame pressed on his chest like a stone. The next morning, Ethan couldn't sit still. His father was still unconscious, and the name, Samuel Hayes, wouldn't leave his mind. He went to the bus stop again. The same cracked bench, the same faint smell of exhaust. The morning crowd bustled as usual, but the old man wasn't there. He asked around. The woman with the child shook her head. "You mean the quiet one with the cap? Haven't seen him since yesterday." The construction worker frowned. "Yeah, I saw him help a guy into an ambulance. Then he just walked off in the rain. Didn't even wait to be thanked." Ethan bit his lip. He'd spent years believing respect was something you demanded, not something you earned. But that old man, he carried it without even trying. He sat down on the bench and stared at the empty space where Mr. Hayes had been. The same bench where he'd mocked him. The echo of his own words stung now. Did those shoes come free with the retirement plan? He felt sick. He needed to find him. That evening, James Walker regained consciousness. Ethan was by his bedside the second he opened his eyes. "Dad, you're awake." James smiled faintly. "Ethan," his voice was hoarse but warm. "You're all right?" Ethan nodded. "Yeah, thanks to you." "Dad, there's something I need to ask. The man who saved you, Samuel Hayes. Who is he?" The father's expression shifted from confusion to quiet disbelief. "You met Sam Hayes?" Ethan nodded slowly. "At the bus stop. Yesterday morning." He stopped, ashamed. "I wasn't nice to him." James looked away for a moment, his eyes glassy. "Son, Sam Hayes isn't just anyone." He reached for Ethan's hand, squeezing weakly. "He saved me 20 years ago and also did same yesterday. 20 years ago, when I was still a rookie cop, your mom and I lived on the east side. There was a hostage situation, a convenience store robbery gone wrong. I was the first on the scene. The suspect panicked and opened fire. I froze, Ethan. I would have been dead if it wasn't for Sam." Ethan leaned in, eyes wide. "Sam was there. Off duty. He was a decorated firefighter, retired Army medic. He ran straight into gunfire and pulled me behind cover. Took a bullet in the shoulder for it." Ethan's breath caught. "After that day, I promised I'd repay him somehow. But Sam refused every offer: money, help, recognition. Said he didn't save me for thanks." James looked at his son. "That man is the reason you still have a father." Silence fell heavy between them. Ethan's heart twisted. The same man he ridiculed, the man he filmed and mocked for his age, had already paid the price for his family's safety decades ago. "I didn't know," Ethan whispered. "I didn't know who he was." His father smiled sadly. "Now you do. Maybe it's time you thank him properly." Ethan spent the next 2 days searching. He called every shelter, every veteran's home, even checked hospitals, but no Samuel Hayes was registered anywhere nearby. Finally, he found a lead. A retired bus driver named Carl told him, "Old Sam lives near Willow Park. Runs a small garden behind the community center. Doesn't talk much, but he's always there by sunrise." The next morning, Ethan went. The park was quiet, dew glistening on every blade of grass. Behind the center, a small fenced plot bloomed with wildflowers and tomatoes. There he was, Samuel Hayes, kneeling by a patch of soil, hands covered in earth, humming softly to himself. Ethan froze. The man looked smaller now, older, but still steady, still at peace. He took a breath and walked forward. "Mr. Hayes?" The old man looked up slowly, shielding his eyes from the sun. "The young man from the bus stop." Ethan winced at the reminder. "Yeah, that was me. And I came to apologize." Hayes wiped his hands on a cloth and stood, posture straight despite his age. "Apologize? For what?" "For the way I treated you," Ethan said, voice trembling. "For mocking you. For filming you. For everything." The old man studied him quietly. "People say things they don't understand," he said finally. "The important part is whether they learn from it." Ethan swallowed hard. "You saved my dad." Hayes's expression softened, eyes narrowing in surprise. "Your father is James Walker?" "Yes. He told me everything. You saved his life 20 years ago, and again last night." Hayes looked away, smiling faintly. Your father's a good man. Stubborn but good. Ethan felt tears sting his eyes. I didn't know who you were. I wish I had. The old man nodded gently. You didn't have to know who I was. You just had to be kind. That sentence hit him like thunder. Simple. Ethan began visiting the park every afternoon. Sometimes he helped pull weeds or carry soil bags. Sometimes he just sat and listened as Hayes told quiet stories about the town, about his late wife, about the things he'd seen in his years of service. No lectures. No judgment. Just small truths in simple words. Ethan started to change without realizing it. His friends noticed. The arrogance faded. His phone stayed in his pocket more. His laughter came from a different place, not from mocking, but from meaning. One day, as they sat watching the sunset, Ethan finally asked, Mr. Hayes, why did you help my dad again? After all these years? The old man smiled. Because that's what we're supposed to do, son. You don't stop being human when the world gets colder. You just try to keep one corner of it warm. A week later, the town was hit by another storm, heavy winds, flooding, downed power lines. The local community center lost electricity, and a small group of seniors got trapped inside when the doors jammed. Ethan and his father were driving home when they heard it on the radio. Without hesitation, James turned the car around. Let's go help. When they arrived, emergency lights flashed across the soaked pavement. And there at the center of it all was Samuel Hayes again. He'd gone inside to guide people out, one by one, using nothing but a flashlight and a rope tied around his waist. Mr. Hayes! Ethan shouted through the rain. You can't go back in, it's not safe. The old man turned, soaked to the bone. Safety's not always the point, son. Responsibility is. And before anyone could stop him, he disappeared into the dark building again. Minutes later, the doors burst open. He emerged carrying a frightened woman, coughing, exhausted but alive. The crowd cheered. Ethan ran forward, helping him steady himself. You're crazy, you know that? Hayes chuckled. Maybe. But I've been called worse. Then he collapsed. The ambulance sirens wailed as they sped toward the hospital. Ethan sat beside him, clutching his hand. Stay with me, please, he said through tears. You can't go yet. I still owe you. Hayes opened his eyes weakly. You owe me nothing, son. Just live better than you did yesterday. Ethan nodded, tears streaming down his face. I promise. The old man smiled faintly, then closed his eyes. 2 weeks later, the town gathered for Samuel Hayes' funeral. Veterans, firefighters, townspeople all stood under a gray sky, hats over their hearts. Ethan stood in the front row with his father. The guilt still burned, but pride had replaced shame. After the service, the pastor handed Ethan a small envelope. Mr. Hayes left this for you, he said. Inside was a single note, written in a shaky but steady hand. Ethan, kindness isn't about who deserves it. It's about who needs it. One day, you'll stand where I stood, and someone will need your grace. S.H. Ethan folded the note carefully, tears falling on the ink. He looked at his father, then at the small crowd around them. For the first time, he understood what true strength looked like: quiet, humble, unseen. Months passed. Ethan finished high school, started volunteering at the same community garden. Every morning, he sat at that same bus stop, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. He'd greet people with a smile, offer his seat, help the elderly climb aboard. And every time he saw someone laugh at another's misfortune, he'd remember Samuel Hayes, the man who never raised his voice but changed his life. He no longer needed a lecture to understand compassion. He'd lived it. In the small town of Brooksville, people still talk about the boy who mocked the old man and the old man who saved his father. But what they remember most isn't the accident, or the rescue, or even the plaque. They remember how one man's quiet grace taught a boy what no amount of wealth or privilege ever could. That dignity isn't worn on the outside. It's carried within. Sometimes life teaches us through pain, and sometimes through people we once ignored. If this story touched you, leave a love emoji in the comments for those who still believe in kindness. Subscribe to Hidden Tales for more powerful stories that remind us what it means to be human. Until next time, stay humble, stay kind, And never judge a story before you know the ending.